You love your child, you work hard for them. You sacrifice everything you have to give them a good life. You're there at every school event, you pay for their education, you keep a roof over their head. So why do they still feel like something's missing? And why, when someone suggests you might have failed them emotionally, does it feel like a knife to the heart, even though part of you wonders if they're right? Let me paint you a picture. There's a father who never misses his daughter's soccer games. He films every goal, posts about her achievements, tells everyone how proud he is. But when she comes home crying about a friend who betrayed her, he says, "Don't worry about it. You'll make new friends." Then he goes back to his phone. There's a mother who works 2 jobs to send her son to the best schools. She buys him everything he needs, drives him to tutoring, checks his grades religiously. But when he tries to tell her he's anxious about college, she says, "You'll be fine. You're smart." And the conversation ends there. There's a parent who reads all the parenting books, follows all the rules, never yells, never hits. They think they're doing everything right, and they are, on paper. But something is still missing. Their child grows up successful, polite, high-achieving, and desperately, achingly alone. These are good parents, loving parents, parents who would die for their children, and yet, their children are growing up emotionally neglected. How is this possible? This is what psychologists call well-meaning but emotionally neglectful parenting, and it's one of the most invisible forms of childhood trauma because it's not about what happened to you, it's about what didn't happen. There's no screaming to point to, no violence to report, no obvious abuse to identify, just a quiet, consistent absence of emotional attunement. A gap where connection should have been, a child's feelings floating in space with no one to catch them. And here's the painful truth. Most parents who do this have no idea they're doing it. They genuinely love their children. They're genuinely trying their best. They would be horrified to learn they're causing harm. But love alone is not enough. You can love your child and still fail to see them. You can provide everything they need to survive and nothing they need to truly live. You can be present in body and absent in spirit. Because emotional neglect isn't about bad intentions, it's about missing awareness. It's about a blind spot so deep you don't even know it's there. And that blind spot, it was probably handed down to you by your own parents. Who got it from theirs? This is the inheritance no one talks about. Let me be clear about something crucial. There is a difference between loving your child and being emotionally attuned to your child. Love is a feeling. Attunement is a skill. Love says, "I care about you." Attunement says, "I see you. I understand what you're feeling. I know what you need." And here's what most people don't understand. You can have one without the other. A parent can feel enormous love for their child and still be completely out of tune with their emotional world. They can adore their child and have no idea what's actually happening inside them. This is because emotional attunement requires 3 things that many parents simply don't have. First, emotional awareness, the ability to recognize and understand emotions in the first place. Not just the big, obvious ones like anger and sadness, but the subtle ones. Anxiety, disappointment, shame, loneliness. Second, observation, the willingness to actually watch your child, to notice what they can and cannot do at each stage of development, to see them as they are rather than as you wish they were. And third, effort and energy, the commitment to do the hard work of understanding another human being's inner world, even when you're tired, even when it's inconvenient, even when their feelings don't make sense to you. Without these 3 elements, love remains just a feeling, beautiful but not enough. So what happens when a child grows up without emotional attunement? They develop what I call an emotional blind spot, a gap in their ability to recognize, understand, and respond to feelings, both their own and others. It's not that they don't have emotions. Everyone has emotions, but they don't know how to process them. They don't have the language for them. They don't trust them. When they feel sad, they call it tired. When they feel anxious, they call it fine. When they feel lonely, they don't call it anything at all, because they've learned that no one is listening anyway. And then, and this is the cruel part, when they grow up and become parents themselves, they pass the same blind spot onto their own children. Not because they want to, not because they're bad people, but because you cannot teach what you were never taught. You cannot give what you never received. A parent who was never helped with their own emotions cannot help their child with theirs. A parent who learned to dismiss their own feelings will dismiss their child's feelings. A parent who grew up in emotional silence will raise their child in emotional silence. This is not a choice. This is not a moral failing. This is simply how the cycle works. The emotionally neglected child becomes the emotionally neglectful parent, who raises another emotionally neglected child, who becomes another emotionally neglectful parent. Generation after generation, the pattern repeats, the wound deepens, and no one knows why their family feels so distant, so disconnected, so incapable of real intimacy. Let me tell you about Zeke. Zeke is a successful businessman. He provides well for his family. He's not abusive, he doesn't drink, he shows up to his son's baseball games. By all external measures, he's a good father. But when his son comes to him upset, Zeke doesn't know what to do. He sees the tears and feels uncomfortable. He sees the emotion and wants it to stop. So he says things like, "It's not that big of a deal," or "You're overreacting," or "Let's talk about something else." He's not trying to hurt his son, he's trying to help. In his mind, he's teaching his son to be strong, to not dwell on negative feelings, to move forward. But what his son learns is this: my feelings are wrong, my emotions are too much, I should keep them to myself. Now here's the part that matters. Zeke's father did the exact same thing to him. When young Zeke came home from school upset about being bullied, his father said, "Toughen up. Life's not fair." When Zeke was anxious about a test, his father said, "You'll be fine. Stop worrying." When Zeke was sad about his dog dying, his father said, "It was just a dog. We'll get another one." And Zeke learned to bury his feelings, to call himself weak for having emotions, to handle everything alone. He doesn't remember this consciously. If you asked Zeke about his childhood, he'd say, "It was fine. My dad worked hard. He provided for us. What more could I want?" But his body remembers, his nervous system remembers, and now, without even realizing it, he's doing to his son exactly what was done to him. This is the pattern. This is how it gets passed down. Not through cruelty, but through ignorance. Not through malice, but through repetition. Not because parents don't love their children, but because they don't know what their children actually need. And the most heartbreaking part? Zeke genuinely believes he's being a good father. He's doing better than his dad did. He shows up more. He says, "I love you" sometimes. He's trying. And he is. He's trying so hard. But trying isn't the same as succeeding. And love isn't the same as attunement. So what does emotional attunement actually look like? Let me break down those 3 elements I mentioned earlier, because this is where most parents get lost. First, emotional awareness. This means understanding that all emotions are valid information, not good or bad, not right or wrong, just data about what's happening inside a person. It means knowing that a child who's acting out isn't being bad. They're communicating something they don't have words for. That a child who's clingy isn't being annoying. They're expressing a need for security. That a child who's withdrawn isn't being moody. They're showing you they're overwhelmed. But if you grew up in a home where emotions were ignored, dismissed, or punished, you don't have this awareness. You see emotions as problems to be fixed rather than messages to be heard. Second, observation. This means actually watching your child, not just supervising them, but truly seeing them. Noticing when they're uncomfortable even if they say they're fine. Recognizing when they need space versus when they need closeness. Understanding their temperament, their sensitivities, their unique way of processing the world. It means knowing what they're developmentally capable of. A 3-year-old who has a meltdown isn't being manipulative. Their prefrontal cortex isn't developed yet. A teenager who slams their door isn't being disrespectful. They're learning to establish boundaries. But if no one ever really saw you, you don't know how to see others. You parent based on expectations rather than observations. You project who you want your child to be rather than noticing who they actually are. Third, effort and energy. This is the hardest part because emotional attunement is exhausting. It requires you to be present when you're tired, to stay curious when you're frustrated, to regulate your own emotions while helping your child regulate theirs. It means asking follow-up questions even when you want to move on, sitting with discomfort even when you want to fix it, making yourself emotionally available even when you'd rather zone out. And if you're already depleted from work, from stress, from your own unprocessed trauma, you simply don't have the capacity. You're running on empty, trying to pour from a cup that's already dry. This isn't a moral failure. This is a resource problem. You cannot give what you don't have. And this is where the real pain lives. Because if you're listening to this and recognizing yourself, if you're seeing your own childhood reflected back, or worse, seeing your own parenting reflected back, you're probably feeling something right now. Maybe it's guilt, that sharp stabbing sensation in your chest that says, I failed my child. Maybe it's shame, that deeper, more corrosive feeling that says, I'm a bad parent. I'm damaged. I've ruined everything. Maybe it's grief, that aching realization that you've been walking around with a wound you didn't even know you had, and now you're seeing how it's affected everyone you love. And maybe underneath all of that, there's a question you're afraid to ask. Am I a bad parent? So let me answer that question directly. Number, you are not a bad parent. You are a parent who didn't receive what you needed as a child. You are a parent doing the best you can with the tools you were given. You are a parent trying to love your child with a broken instruction manual. None of this is your fault. You didn't choose to have an emotional blind spot. You didn't ask to be raised by parents who couldn't meet your emotional needs. You didn't decide to repeat patterns you didn't even know existed. This was done to you before you had any say in the matter. This is the inheritance you received, and you've been carrying it without even knowing it was there. But, and this is crucial, it is your responsibility now. Not your fault, but your responsibility. Because once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. Once you understand the cycle, you cannot claim ignorance. Once you know better, you have a choice. Continue the pattern or break it. And that choice, that's where your power lives. You cannot change what was done to you. You cannot go back and give yourself the childhood you deserved. You cannot undo the ways you've already fallen short with your own children. But you can start today, right now. In this moment, you can be the one who says, this stops with me. Emotional neglect wears many masks. It doesn't always look like absent parents or cold homes. Sometimes it looks like success. Sometimes it looks like dedication. Sometimes it looks like love. Let me show you what I mean. Now, I've actually made 8 detailed videos breaking down each of these parent types individually. If you haven't watched those yet, I highly recommend you go back and check them out because they go much deeper into the psychology behind each pattern. But let me give you a quick overview here. There's the authoritarian parent who genuinely believes they're teaching their child discipline and respect. I'm preparing them for the real world, they say. But what the child learns is that their feelings don't matter, that obedience is more important than authenticity, that love is conditional on compliance. There's the permissive parent who thinks giving their child freedom is the same as giving them love. I want them to be themselves, they say. I'm not like my strict parents. But what the child experiences is abandonment. No boundaries means no container. No structure means no safety. Freedom without guidance is just loneliness with more options. There's the grieving parent, someone who's lost a spouse, a career, their own health, who loves their child but is drowning in their own pain. They're not neglectful by choice, they're just surviving, but the child still grows up managing their own emotions alone, learning to be small so they don't burden the parent who's already struggling. There's the depressed parent who goes through the motions, making meals, driving to activities, helping with homework, but who's emotionally vacant. They're present but not there. The lights are on but no one's home, and the child learns to not expect emotional connection because they can see their parent is unreachable. There's the workaholic parent who equates providing with parenting. "I'm doing this for you," they say as they miss another dinner, another game, another moment. They genuinely believe that financial security equals love, but the child just feels alone in a nice house, hungry for attention they can't name. And there's the achievement-focused parent who pours everything into their child's success. The best schools, the right activities, the impressive resume. They think they're giving their child opportunities they never had, but the child learns that their worth is tied to their performance, that love must be earned, that who they are isn't enough. Do you see yourself in any of these? Do you see your own parents? Here's what's important to understand. None of these parents are villains. They're wounded people raising children while carrying their own unhealed trauma. Let's talk about what happens to the child in these scenarios, not the dramatic outcomes, the addiction, the mental illness, the obvious dysfunction. Let's talk about the subtle ones, the invisible ones, the ones that look like success on the outside but feel like emptiness on the inside. They grow up, they get good grades, they go to college, they get jobs, they get married, they have children of their own, they check all the boxes, and they feel profoundly, inexplicably alone. They're surrounded by people but feel like no one really knows them. They have relationships but struggle with intimacy. They have emotions but don't know how to express them. They have needs but feel ashamed for having them. They become adults who can handle a crisis but fall apart at a compliment. Who can solve everyone else's problems but can't identify their own feelings. Who can be there for others but don't know how to let others be there for them. They apologize for crying. They minimize their pain. They say, "I'm fine," when they're drowning. They push people away and then wonder why they're lonely. And here's the part that haunts them. They don't understand why. "My parents loved me," they think. "I had food, shelter, education. I wasn't abused. I have no right to complain." So they don't. They suffer in silence. They assume something is fundamentally broken in them. They work harder, achieve more, prove their worth over and over, hoping that someday they'll finally feel enough. But enough never comes, because the hole inside them isn't about achievement, it's about attunement, and you cannot earn your way out of emotional neglect. This is the loneliness I'm talking about, the kind that has nothing to do with being alone and everything to do with never having been truly seen. It's the child inside you still waiting for someone to ask, "How are you feeling?" and actually wait for the answer. It's the teenager inside you still hoping someone will notice you're struggling without you having to perform a crisis to get attention. It's the adult you've become, competent and capable and completely disconnected from your own emotional world. And if you're a parent now, there's an additional layer of pain, the fear that you're doing the same thing to your own child. You see them struggling and don't know how to help. You see them hurting and don't know what to say. You love them desperately and still feel like you're failing them. Not because you don't care, but because no one taught you how to speak the language of emotions. No one showed you how to build a bridge between your heart and theirs, so you do what your parents did. You focus on the practical, the grades, the behavior, the surface, and the distance grows, and the loneliness deepens, and the cycle continues. So where does this leave us? If you've made it this far in this video, you're probably sitting with some heavy feelings right now. Maybe grief for what you didn't receive, maybe guilt for what you haven't given, maybe anger at the unfairness of it all. All of those feelings are valid. Feel them, don't push them away, because this is actually the beginning of change. This uncomfortable awareness, this painful recognition, this moment of seeing clearly what you couldn't see before. You might be asking yourself, what now? If I've already made mistakes with my child, is it too late? If I'm carrying this wound from my own childhood, can I ever truly heal? And here's what I want you to understand. Awareness is not the end of the story. It's the beginning. Yes, you've made mistakes. Every parent has. Yes, you've probably already passed some of your own wounds to your children. That's the nature of intergenerational trauma. But here's the beautiful, hopeful, absolutely crucial truth. The cycle can be broken, not by being perfect, not by erasing the past, not by magically healing all your wounds overnight, but by doing something radically different than what was done to you. By acknowledging the pattern, by choosing awareness over denial, by committing to doing better even when it's hard. The cycle doesn't require perfection to break, it just requires consciousness. It requires you to say, I see what happened, I understand how it's affected me, and I'm going to do things differently, even if I don't always get it right. That decision, that commitment, is enough to begin changing everything. So let me give you some concrete steps, not a perfect plan, but a starting place. First, you have to do your own emotional work. This is non-negotiable. You cannot be emotionally attuned to your child if you're not attuned to yourself. You cannot teach emotional awareness if you don't have it. This means learning to identify your own feelings, not just good and bad, but the full spectrum. When you're triggered, pause and ask, what am I actually feeling right now? Is it anger or is it fear underneath? Is it frustration or is it grief? It means understanding where your reactions come from. When your child's tears make you uncomfortable, that's not about them. It's about your own history with emotions. When their needs feel overwhelming, that's not about them being too much. It's about you being taught that needs are burdensome. Do the inner child work. Go to therapy. Read books on emotional processing. Journal. Find a support group. Whatever it takes, do the work to heal your own emotional blind spot, because you cannot give your child what you don't have. But you can develop it, even now, even after all this time. Second, learn to attune to your child where they are right now. Start noticing, not judging, not fixing, just noticing. What makes them light up? What makes them shut down? What do they need when they're upset? Is it space or closeness, words or silence? Ask questions and actually listen to the answers. Not how was school as you scroll your phone, but genuine curiosity. I noticed you seemed quiet today. What's on your mind? And then, this is crucial, wait. Don't fill the silence, don't offer solutions immediately. Just be present with whatever they share. Validate their emotions, even when they don't make sense to you. You're really upset about that is a complete sentence. You don't have to agree with their perspective to acknowledge their feelings. You don't have to fix their problem to show them you care. Third, repair when you mess up, because you will mess up. You'll dismiss their feelings. You'll be distracted when they need you. You'll lose your temper. You'll repeat the patterns you swore you'd never repeat. This is not failure. This is being human. What matters is what you do next. Go back to them. Say, I'm sorry. I didn't handle that well. You were trying to tell me something important and I shut you down. That wasn't okay. Can we try again? This is revolutionary. This is how you break the cycle. Not by being perfect, but by modeling accountability, repair, and the willingness to keep trying. Your parents probably never apologized to you. They probably never admitted they made mistakes. They probably never came back and tried again. You can be different. You can show your child that relationships can heal, that mistakes aren't the end, that love includes accountability. Now I need to tell you something that might change everything. You can be a good parent and still have caused harm. Read that again. Let it sink in. You can be loving and still be emotionally neglectful. You can be well-intentioned and still pass on trauma. You can be doing your best and still fall short. These things are not mutually exclusive. They can all be true at the same time, and recognizing this, really accepting it, is what will set you free. Because as long as you're defending yourself, but I love them, but I tried, but I was better than my parents, you're stuck. You're protecting your ego instead of protecting your relationships. But when you can hold both truths, I am a good person who loves my child, and I have caused them pain through my blind spots, everything shifts. You stop being defensive, you stop minimizing, you stop making excuses, and you start being honest. You start being accountable. You start being available for real change. This is not about beating yourself up. This is not about wallowing in guilt. This is not about deciding you're a terrible parent who's ruined everything. This is about accepting reality so you can work with it. You did the best you could with what you knew, and it wasn't enough. Both things are true. Your parents did the best they could with what they knew, and it wasn't enough. Both things are true. We are all doing our best while simultaneously causing harm. This is the human condition. But here's your power. Once you stop defending, you can start repairing. Once you stop denying, you can start healing. Once you stop pretending everything was fine, you can start building something real. Your child doesn't need you to be perfect. They need you to be honest. They need you to be willing to see them. They need you to be open to feedback, willing to change, committed to doing better. And you don't need to erase your mistakes. You need to acknowledge them, learn from them, and use them as fuel for transformation. You are allowed to be imperfect. You are allowed to have failed. You are allowed to be a work in progress. And you are still worthy of love. And your child is still worthy of an emotionally attuned parent. And it's not too late to become one. So here's where we land. The cycle of emotional neglect is real. It's powerful. It's been running through families for generations, invisible and unacknowledged. But it's not inevitable. You are standing at a crossroads right now. Behind you is everything that was done to you. All the ways you are unseen, unheard, misunderstood, all the emotional needs that went unmet, all the feelings you learned to bury, and in front of you is a choice. You can keep walking the path that was laid out for you. You can continue the patterns because they're familiar, because change is hard, because it's easier to say, I turned out fine, than to admit how much you're still hurting. Or you can stop right here, right now. You can turn around and look at that child you used to be, the one who needed someone to see them and didn't get it, and say, I see you now. I understand what you needed, and I'm so sorry no one gave it to you. And then you can turn forward and look at your own child and say, I haven't always seen you. I haven't always understood, but I'm learning, and I'm here now, really here. This is how the cycle breaks, not with perfection, but with presence. Not with having all the answers, but with asking the right questions. Not with erasing the past, but with choosing differently in the present. Breaking the cycle starts with you. Today, in this moment, it starts with admitting what you didn't receive, acknowledging what you haven't given, and committing to building something new, messily, imperfectly, but intentionally. Your children are watching. They're learning not just from what you say, but from what you do. And when they see you doing your own healing work, when they see you acknowledging your mistakes, when they see you trying to understand them even when it's hard, they're learning something revolutionary. They're learning that change is possible, that honesty is valuable, that relationships can heal, that emotions matter, and maybe, just maybe, they won't have to do as much healing when they grow up. Maybe they'll be able to skip a generation of pain. Maybe they'll become the parent you're learning to be. Conscious, attuned, connected. That's your legacy. That's your power. That's how you break the cycle. Not by being perfect, but by being brave enough to try. The cycle ends with you, and it begins with you. Both are true, and both are enough. Now, I know many of you are wondering about the specific long-term effects of childhood emotional neglect. How exactly does it show up in your adult life? What patterns are you still carrying? In my next series, I'm going to dive deep into the 5 major psychological consequences that follow you from childhood into adulthood. We'll explore each one in detail, how it develops, why it persists, and most importantly, how to heal it. So make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on, because this series is going to give you the language and framework to finally understand what you've been living with all these years. I'll see you in the next video.